Let's do it. Hi everyone, Paul from the innovation community here. Today I'm with Tariq Bhatti, who's the head of data and analytics at the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So Tariq is responsible for all things data at the professional regulator for nurses, midwives and nursing associates in the UK. So great to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul, for having me here. Thank you.
Yeah, great to finally have the chance to speak. Tell us a bit about yourself in a few words to begin with.
Yeah, sure. So for my sins, I'm a dataholic. I've been working with data for the last nearly 20 years now. And yeah, I love all things about data. It wasn't the first career path that I wanted to go on, to be quite fair. When I graduated from university, I did want to become a Flash developer. Thankfully, I didn't. And yes, so I've been working in data for the last 20 years. Worked with various companies from the Royal British Legion, Save the Children, as well as Southern Water. Yes, one of my hobbies, as you would say, is like watching anime. But yes, in all, I have a wealth of experience from working in data in all aspects, from actually, working as a data analyst all the way up to head of, and I'm aspiring to become a chief data officer. Hopefully, one day, maybe we'll see.
One day soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you started out as an analyst like most. Where did your career in data really start?
So my career, well, actually, to be quite fair, I started off as a developer. Yeah, so I was developing with all stuff with as a BI developer, actually doing all things of reporting, dashboards, and so on and so forth. So I started off in Sainsbury's, then worked in Woolworths, and as well as IMS Health as on a BI developer capacity. But as I was working in that capacity, I realized that data was a very core function of everything that we did. And I was very inspired with a lot of people and a lot of talking about data and everything else. But what really got me, really turned on about data, or as I would say, really project my career quite quickly into the data realm, was basically when I worked in the Royal British Legions, and my manager at the time basically gave me the opportunity to become a data architect. And the reason that he gave me that was because everything that I was talking about, without even realizing it, was about data. And basically, it was from that point onwards where I would say that I found my true calling as such. And when I look back at my career, everything has been about data in some way or another, whether it's about fixing because of poor data quality issues, to embedding data as a culture, or looking at it from a data governance point of view, that we need to build like data dictionaries and business glossaries, etc. So although I started out as a BI developer as such, it all progressed within the data as when a person recognized that with me and actually showed my true calling. So that's how it all started.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think that the strategic data side of things, you can either get a strategic leader and bring them into the data function, or you can do it your way, where you can build someone who's been seasoned in all those experiences. And I guess there's probably going to be a debate as to which one's better. But it certainly sounds like you're pretty seasoned at that. What are you up to in your current role?
So currently in my current role, so I started with the Nursing and Midwifery Council last year actually, and they brought me in for a couple of things. One, they really want to make data as a core value or core drive for their business. So that's a great thing to have from your chief exec all the way coming down, saying that data is a core value. So that's a brilliant thing. The second thing is that we're going through a digital transformation program at this present moment in time, where we have a register at the moment. So the Nursing and Midwifery Council has a register of over 700,000 nurses and midwives. Yeah, so we hold every single nursing and midwife that is able to work within the UK, as well as nursing associates within England. And what we're doing at the moment is actually transforming our legacy CRM system into Dynamics. Yeah, so there is a big journey that needs to happen in terms of not only with the data aspect, but in terms of a kind of like, how can I put it, as a cultural change process that goes behind with it. Because historically, you know, we have, in terms of data, we have a a lot of it. You know, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, or all its forms, all started back in World War One, where this all started. So in terms of like data and everything else, we have a lot of it. But the thing is that we just don't know how to leverage it at the moment. Yeah, we do know how to make a lot of responses and everything else to basic cases and everything. So for instance, you know, at the moment we're assisting with with Donna Ockenden in terms of various reviews that are happening with various trusts that we're looking at. But, you know, what we're trying to do is trying to use that data to try and get a front footing, trying to be, you know, trying to be more innovative, and trying to, you know, influence policies as well as best practices within the healthcare sector to bring the best out of our nurses. So that's what we're trying to do at this present moment in time, and that's what we're working on. And when I came in, I came in at the right time actually, because we just announced our 2020 to 2025 strategy. So I was very heavily involved influencing that strategy, making sure that we had data as a focus. And now it's about delivering that strategy with data as a focus, bringing that digital transformation in the sideline, and, you know, really truly embedding data as a culture, and bringing as much value as we can. So that's what we're doing.
And that sounds like a huge overhaul. I think having documents from World War One to that's just creates a headache in itself. And I can honestly say that many organizations probably don't have that challenge. How are you currently leveraging technology to really help with that issue?
So the way we're leveraging technology is that I wouldn't say that I would actually change this around a little bit, just a little bit. So technology is there to help a lot of things, but what we're trying to drive here more is the processes behind it. Yeah. So the technology is to allow the processes of automation to happen a lot more. Yeah. So that's how we're leveraging technology. In terms of what we're looking at, though, is looking at the processes of what we're going through, and making sure that processes is fit for purpose, and B is bringing the right information or data towards the business questions that needs to be answered. Because we could be asking business questions whereby a process or a function is not currently in the right way to answer those business questions, sort of thing. If we don't have the data, we can't answer the question, and then it makes it a lot more harder. So, so what we're doing at this present moment in time is that, while, how we're using technology in order to answer those business questions is getting the processes right. Yeah, it's about having the right governance, having the right people, and having the right mindsets in order to make sure that we can answer those business questions, can write up and can put in the right, what I call, value performance indicators, not key performance indicators, but value performance indicators, that would then really drive our scope of work within the NMC to its heights. So, for instance, if we want to, we are, as an example, we have our overseas process, our customer end-to-end journey for our overseas process, whereby the recruitment for overseas can take up to 6 months, for instance, because they have to go through various checks, they have to go through various trainings, they have to be signed off, etc., etc. But however, through our digital transformation program, we have now able to reduce that time. And if a person has all the documents and everything else, they could actually be turned around within weeks instead of months. And that's an example of what we are doing in terms of shortening down the time by using data to drive these processes, answering those business questions, and then therefore, saving time, saving money, and all the other benefits that business would like.
And from a personal perspective, what are some of the major successes that you've achieved over your career?
So one of the major successes that I believe that I've achieved over my career is actually getting people off the starting block and embracing data as a whole, as an organization. I demonstrated that in the Royal British Legions. I demonstrated that in Save the Children UK while I was there. But more into that, while I was working with Peter Jackson, who was the Chief Data Officer in Southern Water, what we were able to drive up is to have a data ops process within Southern Water that could leverage their data a lot more. And I feel that because of that data ops process, they'll be able to leverage data a lot more better than they did before, sort of thing. So those are some of the key successes that I believe within my career that has happened. One of the best things that I have said to date that I have done or have participated in is basically the emergency of delivering the COVID-19 emergency register for nurses and midwives. That was a absolute, it was a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights, but, what we were able to do, when COVID-19 kicked off and all back in, all back in March when we had lockdown and everything else, was to be able to bring, 16 to 17,000 extra nurses to the front line, available to the front line, in order to help out with COVID-19, because as you can appreciate, when this COVID-19 situation happened, or the predicament that we're in at this present moment in time, there's a lot of people that wanted to help. There was a lot of retired nurses or people who left the register for a number of reasons. Maybe they went into to healthcare and this, that, the other, various other things. But one that really, really wanted to come back and help out in the front line. And for us to turn around to put up a register within weeks, for people to register and then getting them onto the front line on a regulated manner, understanding what, the potential benefits of all of that. I think that is that is an absolute achievement. Obviously, I played a big part in it, but as a team for the NMC to do that, I think that is the highlight of my career.
Yeah, and in these unprecedented times, I've spoken to a lot of people who've used their knowledge of data and have used their organizational data to actually make an impact. But that's definitely a unique way. So congratulations on that. You mentioned the team just then. How would you describe your leadership style?
So in terms of my leadership style, it's very much of, you see, as for me as a leader, I get people to use me and abuse me. Yeah, I am not very much of a dictatorial say you have to do that. There is that places whereby I have to take decisions and say, look, this is the way to go forward, just to press on. But what really and truly, okay, I empower my people to make the decisions. Yeah, I really listen to them because they are in the front line, and then I ask them what are the best things that I can do to help them, whether that's to facilitate conversations, that's to change policies, that's to have better ways of working, etc., etc. So my leadership style is to entrust my team to tell me what's best to do, and then using my wisdom to advise them of how things can be done, and as well as partaking them until telling them that due to my experience, you shouldn't go down this way, you should go to this way. These are the best practices of data. This is the best practices of doing this, and so on and so forth. So it's more of mentoring, nurturing, and then always having that constant feedback from a person. And one of the most crucial thing about leadership is giving them a good vision. Yeah, a vision to work towards. So the vision is there. I trust my people. I allow them to do what they need to do. As long as they're working towards that vision, we will be able, I believe that we'll be able to work a lot more faster, a lot more collaboratively than it would be in terms of a dictatorship saying, you will listen to me, that sort of thing.
And where do you currently see the biggest opportunity for improvement within the NMC?
So, the biggest opportunity I can see for the NMC in terms of improvement is not within, but it's how much we can share to without. the Nursing and Midwifery Council is kind of like, as I keep saying, it's one part of the jigsaw. Yeah, we're towards all of the healthcare regulations that are out there. So, for instance, we got the General Medical Council, we got the General Dental Council, we got the Quality Care Commission, we have NHSX, we have all these other providers there. But what we can do, and what we are striving to do, is one of our things, is that we want to leverage the data that we have and share it with others. Yeah, and then as I say, because we are just one part of the jigsaw, if everybody around the healthcare regulators bring their jigsaw pieces as well, and then we're able to put it together and build this giant picture, I believe that the healthcare regulation and the healthcare industry within itself can massively have could go forward by leaps and bounds just by that. And I think that's the biggest opportunity that the NMC has at this present moment in time, is that it's not only to leverage our data, but to share it amongst others.
Yeah, and I think sharing it in the right way is key as well. What was the biggest mistake you made during your career?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, the mistakes. So you know what? I am human, as everyone else is. So I wouldn't say these were mistakes. I would say that these are learning curves. So in terms of learnings, is that I found that it's all about style and delivery of what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. So sometimes my style and delivery is not something that people would uptake, in the beginning. So basically, in the beginning of my career, I was very, very dry and technical, and people, a lot of people didn't appreciate that. And quite quickly, I recognized that I had to change my personality and my tone and my communication in order to get my points across, and then for people to get on board of why we are doing things. Because, so for instance, data governance. Data governance is one of the most driest subjects. Sorry to everyone that's listening out there, but it's one of those driest subjects out there that you could do to. Now, a lot of people don't, but actually, data governance is one of those really real hidden gems of an organization that can really pull an organization leaps and bounds forward if done right. But the thing is, when you talk about data governance, or you put data governance in front of someone, people just, lights out, go to sleep, and say that, what is, and the best question that they come out with is saying that, what is the bare minimum do I need to do to be compliant? Yeah, but data governance is not about that. It's a cultural thing. It's about taking care of your data. As a lot of people say, if you take care of your data, then the data will take care of yourself, sort of thing. Hence why you would need data governance. But since you talk about data governance, people just go sort of thing. Yeah, but in saying that, what I do now in terms of an approach for data governance is treat it like Fight Club. You know the rules of Fight Club, yeah? So the first rule of Fight Club is not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is it's not to talk about Fight Club. So it's the same thing with data governance. So by not putting it under the umbrella of data governance, we could talk about aspects of the data governance that is related to the business. And then people would then partake in the conversation a lot more better, because they believe that it's part of what they're doing. They care about it more. And if you put the two and two together, and then relate it to what they're doing, etc., and then at the end you drop the penny saying that that's data governance, people are then a lot more receptive and a lot more willing to come with you on that journey, other than just being dry and saying, okay, we need to do a business dictionary, we need to do a data dictionary, we need to do this. It's a document that we just write one time and then we put it in the shelf and we just leave it alone. If we're able to make things come alive, and then talk about things that could be relatable to the other person, that's what I've learned, basically.
A very honest and maybe scathing account of data governance. Or data governance advocates, I should say. What are your thoughts on the impact of COVID-19? You mentioned what the NMC have done. What are your general thoughts on the issue?
So in terms of COVID-19, actually has actually shown shown how data is really, really important within the industry. Yeah, when we come into, talking about contact tracing, we're talking about, GDPR, we're talking about, personal information being shared, etc., etc. What, how much people's privacy is impacted, over this, because as much as we want to share information of who we contacted and everything else, it's about what we're willing to give up on, because I do believe that there is an element of privacy that we have to give up in order to make sure that we are COVID safe. For instance, until a vaccine is found, etc., etc. There are great scientists out there that are working really, really hard and everything else to really get a vaccine. But until that vaccine has happened, we have seen, like, New Zealand, I think Vietnam as well, etc., etc., where cases are so low, or things that are really, really under control. So, for instance, 103 days, New Zealand, not having a case of COVID-19, and then that broke just the other day because a family just all of a sudden had COVID-19. But in saying that, okay, their response and how they use data, and the empathy that the Prime Minister gave in order to make sure that everybody is following the rules, etc., etc. Okay, it's an unprecedented thing. But again, it's about how we can trust other people with this sort of data, and then making sure that we're using it for good. It's the data for good analogy that people keep saying that people are doing. And that's the challenges that are presenting to us right now during this COVID-19 situation. So it'll be really, really interesting. Now, it's not about technology no more. It's not about how we share, etc., etc. It's about our moral responsibility of collecting this data, how we use it, and the best thing for it going forward.
And are you working from home? Are you still going in?
I've been working from home since March, and the Nursing and Midwifery Council is not encouraging us to go to the office at this present moment in time. Yes, there are parts of the NMC that will need to go back in the office from around September time, but really and truly, from what the advice that we have, we're not even thinking about going back into the office until January. But in saying that, we've been having a lot of fun with, like, team meetings, go to, etc., etc. My kids coming from the background, shouting and this, that, the other. With the COVID-19 and working from home, there is a very, very hard. I hope a lot of people will feel what I'm saying here, but it's a very, very hard to draw that fine line between work and home, because when you're home and you're like this, I saw that I'm working a lot more longer hours than before, and the work-life balance is very, very, very hard. But thankfully, I do have a great team, and I do have a great manager that tries to facilitate and help me balance the two. But still, that's quite a struggle.
So, what is your top working from home tip to balance that?
So, my top working from home tip is basically, so. I haven't told this to many people, but what I do, okay, is that I got like a Wi-Fi mesh network, and basically, I put a timer in my Wi-Fi that between 6 to 8 o'clock the Wi-Fi is off. So therefore, I physically can't go onto the Wi-Fi, and my kids can't go onto the tablets. So basically, this will really, really allow us to bond and talk and everything else. I do get my kids screaming at me saying, "Well, I can't use the tablet," and everything else. And then there's me sometimes saying, like, "Yeah, I should extend it for another 5 minutes because I got the email to write, etc., etc." But I do try to, like, try to say to myself, okay, then treat this as a normal work, a normal working day. Do take my lunch break. Do see outside. Spend time, break up my days so that I don't have back-to-back meetings, and spend time with the kids and with my wife, because they are affected as well, and as I said, just trying to use the technologies out there to try and limit yourself using the technology and be doing something else. That's my top tips, really.
That's a first for the podcast, turning off the Wi-Fi. I wonder if you said 12 months ago that I turned the Wi-Fi off between 6 and 8 every day, what people would have said to you. But now you're a visionary.
Thank you.
What does your routine look like?
Um, my routine, my routine looks like. What does my routine look like? So it's basically, in general, it's like, the 10-second commute. It's like I wake up, I, get changed, shower and everything else. Then afterwards, it's turn on, I look at it's the moment that I look at my phone is when I'm on work. So I deliberately don't leave my phone next to me anymore. Yeah. I leave my phone like, in the conservatory or to the dining table, etc., etc. So I physically have to go and get it in order to do that. But before I do all of that, I kind of like, have breakfast, shower, etc., etc., etc. Get my phone, then look at my emails. And then from there, it'll be like it'll be like go to meeting or Teams meeting one after the other. Um, yeah, generally just looking at my webcam more often than not. And then afterwards in the evenings, as I said, just trying to spend more time with my family, take strolls in the park, outside, etc., etc., and just having that bonding time. But you know what? To be quite honest, lately because of the heat, that hasn't happened. And with the heat and everything else, I tend to be working more during the evening when the sun's gone down than during the day. Normally, like during the day, I will have my meetings and everything else, but the actual physical work where I have to think and I have to write emails, etc., etc., normally will happen once the heat has cooled down. Um, yeah, I'm hoping that by Friday they said that this heat wave will go off and etc., etc. So things will go back to normal. But as of late, things have changed a little bit just due to the heat.
And what's the best piece of advice you've received throughout your career?
The best piece of advice that I received for my career at the moment was basically coming from a couple of people, but saying that was to not to be a consultant but trying to be a leader, and that I'm still working on, to be honest with you. You know, throughout my career and everything else, it's very easy to fall into the role of being a consultant. Yeah, and the consultant is basically, for me, it's like you're able to give advice and everything else, but you're taking the workload on your own. You don't utilize the people around you and behind you, sort of thing. To become a true leader and everything else is that you really trust your people. You really let go of things. You really delegate things that will help, your cause and everything else. You know, able to focus on, and that would then able to allow you to then focus on the things that you can really bring value, and not to try to take the whole world on yourself, sort of thing. And then therefore delivering a lot more faster, a lot more better, etc., etc. So that's the best piece of advice that a person has given me so far. That came from my recent manager, Kuram, as well as from Peter Jackson, my previous mentor as well. Those two told me that, yeah, don't be a consultant, try to be more of a leader.
Who is your favorite thought leader or author right now in the data space?
Actually, I just mentioned him. So my favorite actually, there's kind of like three at the moment. There. So there's Caroline Caffers. She's absolutely great. She's a really fun person to talk to. Really knows her stuff. A really advocate for women to get into data. She 100% top star. Marks everything else. The other one is Peter Jackson. The person that I worked in, that actually inspired me to become more than what I am. Because before, a couple of years ago, I was happy being a data architect, and just being a data architect. But actually, following Peter Jackson, seeing his talks, seeing how he interacts with people, how he interacts with other businesses, etc., etc., really, really inspired me. And the third person, in terms of thought leader, is my current boss, Kuram Assam. He hasn't talked much in the public space, but believe me, I'm trying to encourage him. And really and truly, he is very, very wise for what he is, for what he knows, and for the position that he's in. I I really appreciate his patience and his mentorship. He really have molded me and evolved me to become more of a leader than, like I said, than a consultant at this present moment. So those are my three people that I would say that have been me in terms of highly influenced and speakers in the data space.
What are you curious about right now?
Curious. So in terms of curiosity, what I'm really curious is with this whole artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence space, and how that will influence our way of determining, laws and things going forward. It's there's this. I forgot what the thing was, but there's this thing in this artificial intelligence space where the the AI program itself built its own program, and I was like, wow, that's just like, for me, it's like, oh my god, we get in machines building machines sort of thing. We got programs building programs, and like this is where we're going forward now, and that's really really interesting. It's not something that I'm an expert on. I put my hand up and say yes, I am in the data space, but artificial intelligence is not my forte, but it's something that's really really interesting, and it's something that I would, if I could have the time and space, would really really want to get into and understand, and satisfies my curiosity of how artificial intelligence will will work with the world, and how that would work with things like Bane, for instance. Because how did the artificial intelligence arise to? Was it influenced by a particular programmer? Was it influenced by this, and so on and so forth? So it's that sort of thing that would really really I would really want to get into and satisfy my curiosity.
And what is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't thought of that one. Um, ooh. So in terms of I don't really have a specific quote, but if I had to choose one, it would be basically, if you look after data, it will look after you.
And final question, what advice would you give for aspiring leaders in data?
For me to for people who really want to get into data and want to be be leaders within data, my best advice is that it's not all about learning all the technologies in the world. There's so much technologies out there that can help you with data, from Hadoop to Python to data science and all sorts of things. There's so much things there. What it is for people who really want to get into data and be a leader and be a thought leader on this is knowing how to apply it to a business problem and getting the best value out of it. Yeah, that is the key thing. It's not about how much languages you know. It's not about how much algorithms you know. It's about using that knowledge and applying it to a business scenario. If you're able to do that, you're in the winner.
Great advice from Tariq Bhatti, Head of Data and Analytics at the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.